Hey everybody, I am your host Elad, and today I am reporting to you live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. at the March for Life rally. This is the biggest annual pro-life event in the United States. Let's go talk to some people, ask them some questions. So, we're at the March for Life today, and I wanted to ask you why you are here.
I'm here to march for those who are unable to march for themselves. I'm here as a post-abortive assault survivor who regrets her abortion, and I want women, and I want to be able to empower women to make a decision differently than I made, because I thought it was the only thing I could do at the time. And I want to be here to let women know that she can do it.
So I wanted to ask, a lot of people on the opposite political aisle, a lot of pro-life detractors, frame being pro-life as anti-woman, and I wanted to ask you your thoughts on that.
Well, first I want to take issue with the political aisle, because I'm politically agnostic. I'm an independent. I have liberal views and I have conservative views.
So then, pro-life detractors specifically, are often say that pro-lifers are anti-women. That's one of the common phrases.
What is more anti-woman than telling her the only way she can compete in the workplace is to act like a man?
Sounds sexist.
Exactly. Women are capable of the most amazing superpower on earth, and that's creating life. But we've told her she can't succeed at education, she cannot succeed in the workplace, and she cannot succeed independently unless she gives up her fundamental, unique ability to give birth. And that's wrong. That's not equality. That's oppression redistributed.
I wanted to ask, do you think we're normalizing abortion in the United States?
Oh, we have gone a long way to normalizing abortion, which is a very long distance from the original women's movement, which was anti-abortion.
Absolutely. I also wanted to see this part of the sign. So it says, keep your philosophy off my biology. So at 20 weeks, babies can hear voices. They have eyelashes, fingernails, fingerprints. They have a uterus too. I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
They can see light. They have a heartbeat, and they're practically, they are a little human in there, and that's an amazing thing. I wanted to ask, do you think life happens at conception, or?
It's a biological fact that life happens at conception. It's the moment that you go from a 23 chromosomal potential for life to a full human life. You have 46 chromosomes at that point. You have unique DNA, unique to anyone else on Earth. It is a biological fact that is a life form.
So are you also against things like contraceptives and Plan B, or?
I personally am not.
Okay. Because that's where I get a little bit confused on the conception.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm opposed to Plan B.
You're opposed to Plan B?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
I am not opposed to
birth control. Okay.
But I am opposed to Plan B.
That's consistent. Surprisingly nuanced, too.
Sorry.
No, that makes sense. Okay, because I felt like a lot of different pro-lifers are against the different contraceptive methods, which makes me feel like it's a little bit ironic, because if we're trying to prevent as many different abortions, then we should offer people different, Plan B, condoms, different ways to prevent getting pregnant, so you don't have to have an abortion.
Here's
if that's
what's
the case.
beautiful about the pro-life tent is it really is a tent. It is a tent that should be open to all. We have a variation of perspectives, but we have one thing in common, and that is to protect life. And we do that by empowering women to make the best choices for themselves without women did not, in the early stages of the feminist movement, they did not even understand the functioning of their body, let alone have the ability to control it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't we solved the problem by killing our offspring instead of fixing the problem, which was giving women autonomy over their actual bodies, not autonomy over the body inside of them. So we solved the problem with the wrong answer.
I wanted to ask you one last question. I know this is going to be a little bit of a difficult question, but I know in the United States, I'm against making things illegal in general, because I think it just produces a black market for them. Marijuana was illegal, we just created a black market. Heroin's, all that stuff's illegal, but we still somehow have a heroin epidemic. Before abortion was legal, we had off-market abortions. If we made abortion illegal, wouldn't that lead to more of those and more dangerous conditions for women?
Well, we actually do not have any valid statistics to support that. And if you look at all of the information that Roe v. Wade was actually written on, it was citing a book that was pretty much pulled statistics out of the thin air. So we really don't have statistics supporting that.
Okay. Can I shift the question then a little bit?
Sure.
So if we make it illegal here, and then people could still go get these abortions in other countries, Canada, Mexico.
But let me say, the way you solve a supply and demand issue is you get rid of the demand. And if we empower women to make better choices for themselves and to make better choices for their babies, then abortion will not only be unthinkable, it will be unnecessary.
Yes. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, but you can do it.
Thank you so much.
You can do it.
Thank you so much for your time.
We can help you.
Judge me by my size. Do you? Size matters not. I wanted to ask you about this sign and what you mean by it.
Well, it's a quote from The Empire Strikes Back. When Yoda says to Luke, "Judge me by size, do you? Size matters not." But that's specifically referencing like the different restrictions and overcomplications that some people are making to abortions. Is actually really simple. That as soon as the egg is fertilized, it is a life, and it doesn't matter how big it is, and it doesn't matter like if it's growing like limbs or anything. It is a life, and it deserves the right that every other life is given.
Why are you at the March for Life today?
I'm at the march because all life, born, unborn, should matter. It doesn't matter if you're in the womb or outside the womb.
What do you think?
I completely agree. We're here to show people that we believe that they have dignity no matter where they are, whether they're in the womb, outside the womb, no matter where they are. And so this is his first march, this is my third march, and I'm so excited that we had such a big turnout from what I've seen right now.
So I want to ask you guys about your signs. This one says, "I cannot stand by while and innocent lives are lost," and this one says, "Protests are only 3% of what we do." Could you guys explain these signs?
So there's so many other programs than just abortion. There's adoption, there's different planned pregnancies that people can help you with, whether you're in the Catholic Church or whether you're some different organization.
It's a play on Planned Parenthood, right?
Yes, it is. It's a play on their 3% statistic.
So let me ask, if Planned Parenthood didn't perform abortion and only opt for different contraceptive methods, Plan B, birth control, would we still be okay? Would we be okay with Planned Parenthood? Or is it more than just the abortions?
I would be okay with Planned Parenthood if they no longer performed abortions, since one of the biggest problems is just the death of the baby.
I would kind of agree with that. So Planned Parenthood was founded on eugenics by Margaret Sanger, and I'm not okay with a place like that in my vicinity. They target low-income areas. They provide contraception specifically targeted to those low-income areas, and to me, that's another form of racial injustice. And that's not still upholding the dignity of those people in those areas. So I would actually disagree and say I would not be okay.
So it's a curious thing because I know a lot of different, leftists and liberals are all about social justice for all different groups of people, but it seems the unborn is one group that they overlook. So I want to ask you guys specifically about that. It seems ableist, really, to a degree, for the unborn. So do you guys have any thoughts on that?
My first thoughts on it would be, I can sympathize with that, okay? I don't think it's not us against them. It's we need to work on this together, and we need to understand what it truly means to be human to each other, and how precious every person's talents and gifts are. And so when it comes to the poor, the marginalized, if you're talking immigration, whatever the case is, we need to focus on those, but we also need to focus on those who can't defend themselves, in specific the unborn. And I would say it's almost, if you're getting into psychology, object permanence to some degree. Just because you don't see necessarily the product that you're used to, you don't think of it in the same terms. And so I think we need to get on the same page when it comes to terms like that.
It seems like sometimes when people have a miscarriage, I know when women have miscarriages, they feel horrible about it, but I feel like a lot of people in the media are making it seem like abortions are different from that. Do you think there's a difference between, miscarriages and abortions, or are they the same in all cases? The end result is what I'm talking about.
So the end result in both situations is just very sad, and it's tragic. Whether or not you say, "Oh, abortion's my choice, I'm okay with it," there's still going to be mental. You're still going to need to talk to somebody about that, because that can be a very hard decision for a lot of women. And when it comes to miscarriages, one of our friends just had a miscarriage, and it was very tragic for their family. And so comparing abortion to miscarriages, I would say would be almost unfair, because abortion is deliberately taking the life of another human being. Whether or not you're pressured into it, that's what it is. When it comes to miscarriage, that's something that you can't necessarily always you can't really control that. And so I would say they're different. The end outcome, though, these women still do need help, and they need someone to talk to.
I also wanted to ask you guys, who are your leaders in this movement, and who do you think will help you bring you guys to help repeal Roe v. Wade? I'm assuming that's your guys' end goal, but yeah. So who are your leaders, your crusaders in trying to achieve that?
I would say, so we're with our Students for Life group at the University of Missouri, so I would definitely say Kristen Hawking's the president of that. I would say
Maybe like congressmen, politicians.
Congressmen, politicians. I actually just went on a van tour this past summer to confirm Brett Kavanaugh in Missouri and Southern Illinois. And so I would definitely say him getting onto the Supreme Court, that is a big step in the, like...
So he recently called Roe v. Wade settled law. Are you just betting that he was dishonest there, or because he said it was settled law and that he'd keep that up?
So based on him saying that, I would say that if we're going to get Roe v. Wade overturned, there's baby steps that you have to go to get that. You know, you can't just jump into a hot pot of water. You have to step in slowly. And so there's minor court cases that are coming up in the Supreme Court, and based on those decisions will ultimately eventually lead to Roe v. Wade, Doe v. Bolton. It'll lead to the bigger cases, but right now we're hoping for smaller victories.
I'm here to defend the rights of babies who are being murdered in the womb.
So do you think Roe v. Wade should be overturned?
I do.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you, do you think life begins in when the baby is conceived?
Yes.
Okay,
life
so
begins at conception.
What about different contraceptives and Plan B? Are those as bad as abortions are? And should we look to outlaw those as well?
I think everybody should be open to life, and you have a choice whether or not you want to engage in sexual intercourse. And when you do, you need to deal with the consequence of that, and that consequence is a human life.
Absolutely. I also wanted to ask, some pro-life detractors say that a lot of these kids are going to be born into situations that are horrible and full of despair. You know, they aren't going to be born into good situations, and that's a lot of people's excuse for getting an abortion. Do you have any response to that?
If you're not in a position to support a child, then you can give the child up for adoption, and so they have a chance to live a good life, and because that's no excuse to kill a baby.
Just because I know single motherhood rates are increasing in the U.S., and I think that's one of the biggest problems in the country, leading to different problems with our culture and such. So people would say that, you know, having more babies into single-parent homes isn't going to help that. So that's why overturning Roe v. Wade could be compromising that. I also wanted to ask, though, who are your leaders in this movement, different politicians that you look to help you in this movement? I mean, I see you got to Make America Great Again hat. I'm assuming Donald Trump and Mike Pence.
Yes.
But besides those two.
Ben Shapiro.
So now I want to ask you a tough question.
Okay.
So full disclosure. So let's say we repealed Roe v. Wade, and then we had different people from the United States who needed to get abortions going to other countries to get them. Canada, Europe, Mexico, what have you. Would we punish those people if they came back to the United States? And how would we handle it being legal in other places and not legal here? Because it seems like if that were the case, if we repealed Roe v. Wade, people would go to other countries and what have you, and then it would only affect the most marginalized communities, poor people who couldn't afford to do that. So what is your thought on that? And I know that's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
It's just in the abstract. Because when you make things illegal, you don't stop them. We just create a black market for them. And then if we're going to go into penalizing people for it, where is this going to go from there?
I think that's an important question. I think that's what a lot of people who agree with Roe v. Wade, that's something that they're kind of concerned about with our viewpoints. However, when it comes to having abortion legal in other countries, I would just focus on what can we do right now in our present. The only thing that we can control is in America.
And America should lead by example, as we usually do.
America should lead by example, but I think right now we need to focus primarily on what can America do, because right now we're in a very strong, tough battle. And if Roe v. Wade does get overturned and abortion does become illegal, if it gets overturned, it actually goes back to the states. But if in some time in the future it does become illegal, I don't think we should necessarily focus on the fact of, oh my gosh, how much punishment can we give these women? I think we need to bring them to an understanding. So if you go to, this might be a bad analogy, so please bear with me, but when I think of somebody who's suffering through something, so take Alcoholics Anonymous, for example. They have groups and stuff. I think that if we were to overturn Roe v. Wade or something to that effect, that we have more access to these types of groups, because it's going to happen, black market, all that stuff happens, whether or not it's legal. And I think that we need to be aware that, yeah, there are laws, maybe fines.
But let's say we make abortion illegal, and then they happen on the black market. Who would we charge?
I think it depends.
I'd say the doctor, because if you're performing the abortion, then I think, if it was illegal, then I think we should charge the doctor if abortions are still performed. But I think a lot of people on the left are worried, or pro-choicers are worried that we'd start arresting women for stuff like that. So there's a lot of murkiness here.
Exactly, and so like, I definitely agree with that statement. If you are a doctor and you're performing abortions, illegal abortions. First off, you took an oath when you become a doctor that you're not going to do harm. Yeah, one, that would be you'd be a hypocrite, and second, these women don't necessarily know everything that like comes in when it comes to if you're going to go black market abortions or just abortions in general. I've met women who they went in and they didn't understand that that's what it was going to be like, and they said if they would have known, then they would have revoked their decision.
Do you think abortion's being normalized in the USA?
Absolutely. If you've ever seen Snapchat, any of those news outlets on there, or like when you're looking more towards our younger generation, I feel like it's definitely being normalized, and I'm not okay with that, because for a lot of these people who are looking at why is this being, or the younger people who don't have, sorry, that was distracting. But a lot of people who don't have like a very clear understanding as to what is going on, they just go along with whatever they're told, whatever they said, and I'm not okay with that, because I think people should be educated on this topic. And
right.
So one-sided news outlets, that's not helping educate your population. You're just making them zombies to whatever your views are.
Great. Thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Why are you out here marching today?
Because I'm pro-life, because I believe life is sacred, and all these babies should be given a chance to live.
So I want to take a quick look at the signs. First we have life is sacred over here. You look like you're overwhelmed with the signs.
Well, my husband's parking and my son's in the bathroom.
So we also have choose adoption over here, and then we also have baby lives matters over here. I wanted to ask, who are your leaders in this movement? Who do you look to get Roe v. Wade repealed?
Oh, well, anybody that's willing to fight for that. Political leaders, and I'm not Catholic. I love the Catholic Church and their support of this. Anyone that's willing to say that life is sacred and that we should sustain life.
Yeah, and I know many detractors, pro-life detractors, frame it as an anti-woman thing. So they say it's a woman's health issue, so if you're against women's health, then you're against women in general. What do you think about that narrative that people use against pro-lifers?
I think it's false. I think that abortion hurts women. I think the women that have the abortions are the ones that suffer. And I think that frankly, I think we're lying to our daughters when we tell them that this is an acceptable thing to do. And I think, a lot of the young ones believe it and believe that this is okay. And then after they have an abortion, I think they suffer a lot of emotional trauma and regret. So I'm here because I am pro-woman. And I think it's false to say that those that encourage our daughters to kill their babies are helping women.
Yeah, and I also wanted to ask, it's an interesting point because we have the Women's March here tomorrow. Do women like you, pro-life women, feel welcome at the Women's March?
I do not.
And why not?
Well, I think that it has the undertone of being pro-abortion, so I don't feel like I can march there in good conscience. And I think that I marched here last year, and then I saw pictures of the Women's March from all over the place, and I think their message tends to be angry, and I don't.
It doesn't seem very inclusive. It doesn't seem. It seems more than just woman. It's women and other things, but it doesn't. It's not including all women, pro-lifers, and especially unborn women.
Exactly. I'm in favor of unborn women too.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you: is there any final points you want to say? Anything else you want to mention?
No, I'm just really happy to be here. I want to say that the spirit here is so beautiful. As soon as I get here and I look around and I see people, that represent different ages and different cultures, and it's a beautiful feeling to be here and feel like we all believe the same thing in this regard.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Ron, can you come a little bit closer? Let's take a look at this sign. So it says, those who don't understand that life starts small, is this a sack of cells, a human baby? And we also have a fetus equals a baby with right to life, a clever girl. Yes. So I want to ask, when do you think life begins?
Life begins at the moment of conception.
Okay, so do you also think things like Plan B are just as bad as abortions and should be regulated as such?
Yeah, they're just as bad.
Okay, what about different like contraceptives?
Contraceptives, all of that goes against God's plan and his natural plan for the family. So I don't agree with that either.
I also know that a lot of pro-life detractors phrase it as a woman's health issue and then make the pro-lifers inherently anti-woman's health and anti-woman. I wanted to ask you about that narrative.
So the problem with abortion is that they don't tell you like all the side effects of it. It does affect a woman's health and a woman's ability to have children later on.
Yes.
Women who have had abortions have a tendency to have the baby with birth defects or the inability to have children. And as well as contraceptives like the pill, it does not it really doesn't help a woman's health at all. There are many side effects to that as well as it causing cancer in some cases. Mm-hmm. So it's really not beneficial to take that either.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you about how, so obviously Roe v. Wade happened like 40 some odd years ago, and before it was legal there were black market abortions and people were going to other places to get those abortions. If we make abortion illegal again, what would stop people from going to other countries to get them, or the black market, or from them happening on the black market, which again would be bad for women's health if these were done on the black market instead of doctors' offices?
So I think that something that isn't publicized that would help women from stop having abortions in the first place is places like Life Choices.
Okay.
And that is a place where women who are pregnant can go and they help you during your pregnancy and after the child is born. They help you all through adulthood, Life Choices. And they're just a really great organization. And I feel like if more places like that were publicized, women would see that there are other options other than abortion. And the fact that they don't understand that life starts at conception and that it is a human baby no matter the size.
I also want to ask you about defunding Planned Parenthood. Let's say Planned Parenthood stopped performing abortions but did their other functions, which is providing different contraceptives to people, doing different types of checkups on women's health. Would you still be in favor of defunding them?
Yes, because the checkups that they do are not the same that you would get at a regular doctor's office. Many women who have gone often say that whatever health benefits they went there for were not even that great. So you're really not getting the full attention and care that you should be getting from a lot of those places. And if you call them, not a lot of them do not publicize that or offer that help to you. They have you go in, you have your abortion, and they're not helpful after.
We're out here for the March for Life today. Your sign here, it's a quote from Ben Shapiro. It reads, "The greatest moral in society historically is the idea that you get to arbitrarily define what is human and what is based on your own conscience." I wanted to ask, why are you here today and what does it mean to you to be here?
To march against the greatest injustice of our time, the right to live. I truly believe that the abortion is a dehumanization of the unborn. And it's the greatest moral injustice of our time, like it says.
I wanted to ask you, are you also against things like contraceptives, like birth control, different condoms? Because I know that could potentially lower the risk of pregnancy, which could lower the risk of unwanted pregnancy, which could lower the risk of abortions.
Yeah, I have a lot of I have a lot of mixed feelings about that. I don't agree with Plan B pills. Okay. I don't really think there's anything against condoms and birth control, because that it prevented the pregnancy. It didn't terminate it.
So do you think we as a society should be encouraging those things or in order to prevent more people from getting pregnant? Because I know a lot of different groups here are against all different forms of contraception, and I'm looking for some nuance here. So I want to ask what you think of that.
That would be a better way to encourage, instead of encouraging them to just go to a clinic. Definitely that, because I mean it keeps them from getting pregnant, and then, like...
Yeah. Do you think we should defund Planned Parenthood?
Oh, definitely.
And now let's say Plan B didn't perform abortions and just only offered other services like checkups for women's, offering condoms, and doing, birth control. Would you still support defunding them if they didn't if only did those things and not abortions?
Yeah. I could definitely stand with them more, because it's just the abortion thing I have a really great moral qualm with. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you about the narrative surrounding abortion and pro-lifers in general. So it's been phrased as a woman's health issue, so that would make pro-lifers inherently anti-woman. And I wanted to ask you if you feel that narrative and what you think about it.
I don't feel that narrative at all. I think that it's pro-life is a true feminism, because 50% of all unborn babies are female. So that's definitely, yeah, I don't think it's not a healthcare. Abortion is not healthcare, not at all.
And I know we also have the Women's March coming up tomorrow. I wanted to ask, do you feel welcome as a pro-life woman at the Women's March?
Not at all.
And why not?
I guess I've never been there, and I've just heard a lot.
One of their platforms is like a woman's health, a pro-choice. That's definitely their angle.
Definitely, and so I would feel unwanted there because I know that probably 75% of all the women there are for abortion.
I'd probably more.
Yeah, probably more, yes.
So not all inclusive for all women.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I wanted to ask you why you're out here today.
Because I think this is a cause that we need to support. I think a lot of people don't know. They're against the pro-life movement and they think abortion is fine because they don't know what really happens. And I think people just need to be made aware.
So you're against it for a moral reason. You think it's the killing of the baby.
Yes.
So when do you think it is killing? When do you think that life begins?
At conception.
At conception.
Yep.
Okay. So a lot of people would start questioning what contraceptives you're cooler against. So like, are we also against the use of condoms and birth control, or do we draw a line there?
No. The ones that so like the Plan B pill.
Yeah.
Is
but I'm talking about birth control and condoms now.
That stops it before.
Yeah. So there's no egg and semen.
Right.
But Plan B now. So Plan B, we got egg and semen.
Right.
Now that's not cool.
Because then that's after conception. That's I think that's ending. That's when the life would be starting. It's forming and it's already starting to go. And that's when you're stopping that. But if you're not having a kid, then that's just not.
I also wanted to ask you on the narrative around pro-lifers. So I know pro-life detractors often say that it's a woman's health issue. So then they frame the pro-life movement as inherently anti-woman. So I wanted to ask you what you think about that narrative.
I completely disagree with that. And the one I hear a lot is that like they say, oh well, will you take care of the women after that they have their kids? But that's what Save the Storks is for. A lot of these clinics out here will go and help them, and even if they had an abortion and they're still dealing with trouble with that, they're there to support these people, and that's what we want. We want to support these women. Whether or not they had an abortion, we want to support them and love them.
Yes. So other pro-life detractors often say that, a lot of people, when people have abortions, it's because they're going to be born into single families. They're not going to be able to be supported. They're in poor families. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that too.
Well, that's definitely a tough situation, but I don't think that makes it an all right reason to end a life. And I think it's a tough situation, and that's why we need to support these other groups that will help people in those situations. But I don't think that's an excuse to end a life.
Sure. Also, making things illegal often just pushes them onto the black market or makes people want to do them in other areas. So, for example, let's say Roe v. Wade was appealed, it gets kicked back to the states, but let's just say abortion was made illegal across the states. It would encourage a black market, which would damage women's health because they'd be done on the black market in a less safe condition, and people would also go to Canada and Mexico. So it would end up disproportionately affecting poor people. So I wanted to ask you about that in general. With making things illegal doesn't often prevent them fully. Before Roe v. Wade, people were still having abortions. They were just done so more unsafely.
Yes, but the numbers, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I don't believe that it's not okay to make it legal. It's still wrong morally, and so I don't support making it legal. And abortion, I believe, has increased a lot, and we want to support them. So obviously, we don't want them to go out and have these people say like back
right, or other countries though,
right.
Or would we punish those people? Because more pro-life detractors would say, what if so you could induce a miscarriage in women? So how are we going to police this? Because what, are we going to end up arresting mothers who may or may not have had a miscarriage or may have induced it themselves? It starts getting into this gray area. And so how are we going to, follow the law?
No, I don't think we should, punish mothers. Because I think a lot of them, a big thing is why there's so many abortions. They don't understand what is actually happening.
Okay,
and
so you think it's an education issue?
Yeah, like a lot of women, once they see that ultrasound, they realize that there's a life inside of them, and that changes a lot of minds. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think we should punish them. Obviously, doctors shouldn't be allowed, and if they're doing it illegally, then they would be willfully breaking the law, and we could take action against that. But I think a lot of mothers just don't understand.
I also wanted to ask, a lot of pro-choicers say Planned Parenthood does more than just abortions. So now I wanted to ask you, let's say Planned Parenthood didn't stop performing abortions, would you still be in support of defunding them?
I guess if they didn't
because then they'd still, the other things that they would offer would be things like condoms, checkups for women, birth control, things like that.
I mean, sure, those are okay things. I have no problem with those things, but I'm not okay with taxpayer money going towards something that I believe is immoral.
Okay. I also want. Okay, so now I want to take that argument and phrase it a little bit differently. Because now the way you said that. So now let's say I'm a person who's against Trump's wall, and I don't want my tax money going to that. I don't know if we could tell people where they should and where their tax money should and shouldn't be able to go. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't agree with most of what the government does, but that doesn't mean my tax money shouldn't be able to go to it. I don't think abolished ICE people should be able to not decide where their tax money goes.
You're right. That is fair. I should phrase that better. Because, like, okay, I guess the distinction would be Planned Parenthood is its own like organization.
Yes.
And so I guess I wouldn't be okay with people who are not Christian and don't agree with churches and stuff. If the government's going and funding churches and stuff, and those people are like, hey, I don't want my money going, like, that's not really the government's place.
Yeah.
I don't think the government should be doing that. But like with the wall, that's different. That's a national security issue, and people might disagree on that.
It's just the principle, though.
Yeah, yeah.
But I also want to ask,
in general, I'd rather have the government be less involved in things.
Exactly. And that's why this issue is so, even amongst people who are small government, are conflicted on because it crossed across the aisle. I also want to ask, was there anything else that you wanted to say?
Well, with that, like the small government, a lot of people are like, well, why do you want the government to be involved in these things if you want smaller government? I'm often asked that. And I think the distinction is that we're dealing with a life, and the government's job is to protect lives. And so that's why this is an issue that the government should be involved in preventing.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode. I wanted to pose a question back to you. Please let me know what you thought about the interviews down in the comments. Also, if this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, guys, stay barely informed.